My daughter knows she's adopted. She came home as a foster child when she was 8 months old. Our adoption was final when she was 3.5. I often wondered, but had no way of knowing how her young mind made sense of the concept of adoption. I decided that I would follow her lead as she made sense of it, unless she asked me a direct question. Then I would tell her the truth. When she was 5, she struck up a conversation one day that started with, "Mom, when I was in your tummy, did I?" "Uh-huh," I answered nonchalantly. I was so taken aback, I honestly don't remember the rest of her question. I knew the mom of one of my daughter's kindergarten classmates was pregnant and assumed that's what brought on this line of questioning. She tried a second time. "Mom, when I was in your tummy," again, I followed her lead and played along. On her third try, she became serious. "Mom, was I really in your tummy?" "Actually, sweetheart, you were in your Indian mom's tummy. That's the name she gave her birth mom. But you were born in my soul." I watched as she considered this information. Before long, she looked over again and said, "Mom, when I was in your tummy," I smiled and continued playing along. I meant what I said, though. She really was born in my soul, though it took me a while to understand this. 33 years to be exact. The only thing I knew for sure when I was in college was that I wanted to be a mom. I came out in the fall of 1978, about a month before Harvey Milk was assassinated. Today, being a gay parent is more accepted, but in 1978, as I understood it, the courts were taking kids away from their gay parents just for the fact of them being gay. While I felt relieved that I could finally acknowledge my lesbian identity, I also believed that my dream of being a mom was no longer possible. A few years later, I was on vacation with friends when we came across a palm reader. I decided to have my palm read just for fun. The only thing I remember her saying is, "You have 2 children." Later, I looked at the 2 lines she said were my children and told my friends, obviously, she didn't figure out that I'm gay if she thinks I have 2 children. When I was 31, my last relationship ended, and I moved to Arizona to start a new life. I vowed that I would have my family by age 40. 39 came along, and with no prospective partner on the horizon, I decided I better move ahead on my own. So I started donor insemination. 5 months after my 40th birthday, I found out I was pregnant. I gave birth to my son, Robert, on August 20th, 1998. 23 hours later, I held him in my arms as he took his last breath. He died from complications that occurred during delivery. When I became pregnant, I thought I was on the verge of finally realizing the dream that I had acknowledged 20 years earlier. Now I realized I was no closer. Within weeks after his death, after the memorial, and after everyone was gone back to living their lives, I remember standing in my son's room staring out the window. Those 2 little bears sitting on his dresser caught my attention, and a thought flashed in my mind. Those are my 2 children. Then I remembered the palm reader from 20 years earlier. Those bears had been on his dresser for months and had never made that impression before. The first was a stocky, off-white colored bear holding a heart between its paws and a rose sewn in the middle of the heart. What I hadn't paid much attention to before was that the bear wore a sash across its chest that held up angel's wings that spread across its back. Leaning against this angel bear was a petite, lanky limbed girl bear with grayish fur. She wore a blue flowered dress and a mauve colored wrap around her head. The most striking feature were her round, black, almost black eyes. In the months that followed, I experienced the depth of my grief. At times when I would despair about never being a mom, the image of this girl bear would appear in my mind's eye, and I would instantly feel at peace. Eventually, I went through fertility treatment, became pregnant a second time, and lost this pregnancy to miscarriage when I was 46. After this second loss, I didn't care if I ever got pregnant again. I didn't immediately turn to adoption, though. I wanted to make sure that I could fully accept an adopted child in his or her own right, not as a replacement for my lost birth child. I didn't know if the depth of attachment would be there without pregnancy and a birth experience and hormones and shared gene pool. I only knew that there couldn't be any dividing lines. My love and commitment had to be unconditional. I completed my certification for adoption when I was in my early 50s. My caseworker had also recommended that I be licensed as a foster parent so that it would increase my chances of being chosen for adoption. After all the loss that I had experienced, the thought of bonding with a child and risking losing her was too much for me. So I didn't do it. It had been almost 13 years since Robert had died. After even more soul searching, I let go of all of the other conditions I had been holding on to and made a simple prayer. Help me find the child connected to my soul, God. That's all I really want. When I was preparing to be recertified for adoption, my caseworker brought up the subject of fostering again. She told me I could specify that I only want to foster a child whose case plan is for severance, not reunification. I was a few weeks into my foster parent licensing course when my caseworker called with a possible foster placement if I was interested. I was the third family that they had called. The agency, she said, is willing to place the child with you, even though you're not licensed yet, knowing that you're going through the process. Without hesitation, I simply said yes. 2 weeks after that call, I met my daughter for the first time at the group home where she lived. When she looked up at me with those round, black chocolate eyes, I knew I was finally meeting the daughter of my soul. As if to erase any possible doubt, she wore a mauve-colored bow in her hair that day, the same color as the girl bear would be wearing when she finally came home.